Okay, we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. I am Ashley Ferraro, Assistant Director for the Office of Global Learning at FDU. And thank you for joining us today for our final UN NGO Virtual Pathways Forum of the Spring 2020 semester. Today we will be co-hosting the event with FDU's Career Services Office, and the event will be working in and around the United Nations. I would now like to introduce today's panelists who will be speaking about their experiences working in and around the UN. We have Mr. Rogel, Nuguid-Director of Strategic Alliance for Global CEO Alliance, and he is also an adjunct professor for FDU's Teaching Global Issues and Cross-Cultural Perspective courses. We have Ms. Laurie Phipps, former Principal Policy Advisor at the United States Mission to the UN, and also an adjunct for FDU teaching global issue courses. We have Ms. Deniz Hacıalioğlu, External Affairs and Communication at NYC School of Construction Authority, and also Ambassador of UN TeachSDGs. And before we get started, this is just a friendly reminder that today's event is being recorded. And after the forum is complete, we will be leaving the last 10-15 minutes for questions to be asked to the panelists. I will ask you if you have any questions during the forum and during the question and answer to use the chat to ask the questions. And then I will read the questions over to the panelists. And now I would like to hand the event over to today's panel mediator, Ryan Stalgadis, Campus Director of Career Development for FDU's Florham campus.
That's me. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for having us here. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to our panelists. I've been doing this panel for quite a few years now, and it is one of my favorite things to do. The information that is talked about during this time is always amazing. I'm always left feeling inspired, and I hope that you all will get that today. So again, thank you for joining us. My name is Ryan Stalgadis. I'll be moderating the panel today. I'm the Campus Director for Career Development on the Florham campus, so if any of you need help with career-related things, please feel free to reach out to me. But today we'll go ahead and get started. We have an excellent group of panelists here to talk about working in and around the UN. So I want to go ahead and get started asking them some questions, and we'll get started with the most simplest and sometimes the hardest question, which is, tell me about yourself. If you guys can go through the line and tell me about yourself, give a brief background of your education and how you got into the UN. And if we can start with Professor Phipps.
Thank you very much, Ryan. So when I was in undergraduate school at University of Pennsylvania, I liked studying history. And my older sister said, there is no way you can get a job that pays anything in history. So you have to think of something else to do. So I took some economics courses, and then I realized that you could have a cross-disciplinary major back then in Penn, and they called it international relations. If I added in some political science to my economics and history, I could be an international relations major. So I did a major in international relations. And then I said, well, now what am I going to do? And I thought I really wasn't ready to enter the working world. So I applied to graduate school, went to the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, continued studying international relations. And after 2 years of that, I said, well, now what am I going to do? And I thought to myself, it would be nice to work at the UN. And I was told that it's very hard for Americans to get employment at the UN. But almost all of my classmates were taking the Foreign Service exam to work for the US Department of State and be a Foreign Service officer, a diplomat abroad. So I thought, what the heck? I'll take the test and see how that goes. Took the test, happened to do very well on the test, and I got put on the waiting list to be a Foreign Service officer. So I said, well, gee, let me try it for a few years and see how it goes. Well, I stayed in the Foreign Service for about 8 years, then got married to a man who did not want to go abroad, and so changed my career trajectory and ended up switching over after a hiatus of several months to the civil service and getting a job for the US mission to the UN, which is what they call the office of the US ambassador to the UN. In our own country, we can't have an embassy. the State Department can only have an embassy when it's in another country. So since the UN is in New York City, in our own country, it's called a mission. And all the other countries also have missions to the UN rather than embassies to the UN. So I got a job after having worked in embassies in London and in Calgary, Canada, and several jobs at the State Department in Washington. Got a job in the civil service with the being an advisor to the American ambassador to the UN, and stayed there for about 30 years doing various things. First working on African issues, then working on refugee and humanitarian issues, then working on women's rights and disability rights and indigenous rights and various other human rights issues. In the meantime, I took a short, what they call a secondment to work in the US Embassy in Moscow for a few years, and then came back and retired from there about 2 years ago and began teaching at FDU. So that's, in a nutshell, my career path. Thank you.
That was phenomenal. Thank you. I'm already, and again, I do this panel every year. I'm already re-fascinated with your journey, and I'm sure it will only continue to be such. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go in order as I see it on my computer screen here. So Deniz, if you want to go and share your background, tell us a little bit about yourself, your education, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure, Ryan. Thank you so much. Thank you for a great opportunity. It's wonderful to be here with all the change makers, because I see everyone who attends this event is a change maker. Even if you are not feeling one of them, you will be one day, believe me. And I hope everyone is safe and healthy in your family. If you're a happy volunteer, national volunteer, by the way. So I'm from New York. I work for New York State School Construction Authority in Government and Community Relations Department. We build and renovate all public schools of New York State for 1.1 million children. I'm also a TeachSDGs ambassador. I create partnerships and I communicate our mission as a movement for this global movement of United Nations Foundation. Also in the meantime, I do a lot of volunteering with other places. One of them is American Red Cross. I'm a community relations ambassador for them. We do a lot for humanitarian aid after floods, after wildfires, after home fires. We educate and create awareness on these issues, and we take action on these post disaster side. Also, what we do, I also volunteer for New York Cares. And I, as a public servant, first of all, I always knew that I wanted to be at the service of the community, because I always wanted to make a change in people's lives, and I wanted to see the results of this change for the vulnerable communities, especially, and so that everyone can thrive and reach their full potential. I got my bachelor's on comparative linguistics and literature from Galatasaray University. It's a Francophone university in Istanbul. And I spent 6 months in Paris 3 Sorbonne as an Erasmus student. And then I got my pre-MBA degree from Baruch College on marketing. And now I'm working for the city of New York.
Sorry for the delay as I unmute myself.
No worries.
That's awesome. Such an interesting background. So many powerful things that we can tell that you're doing. And I already love, and I will reiterate this as we move forward and talk about various different things, but becoming change makers and being change makers. And I think that's a huge thing that I always take away from this as well. So thank you for sharing that. Professor Nuguid, if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background, your education, and how you got to where you are today, and then we'll move on to some other questions.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, co-panelists. Everyone, thank you very much. Hope everyone, as Deniz had said, I hope everyone is safe and healthy. My background started actually in the private sector, where I worked as an HR person. So I worked first with Ericsson Telecommunications as HR manager. And then I morphed into working for the UN for 20 years, where I developed my competencies, sets of skills that is needed to pretty much work from support staff, G level, to professional level. So from G to P, I managed to move to the ladder, wherein I was exposed to different functional areas of budget and operations, resource mobilization, partnership, even conference service arrangements. I've dealt with the high-level committee in terms. The high-level committee is the committee of the whole, where you have, and Professor Phipps would know this, you have 190 plus, I think back then it was 194 member states, wherein you do policy coordination on various issues, specifically on international cooperation. So from supporting role to policy coordination to institutional partnerships within and across the periphery of the UN agencies, I managed to at least expand all these competencies needed to be successful at the UN. And then immediately after that, I went to working for the private sector Global CEO Alliance, as well as the Africa Trade Investment Group services. Currently, I am teaching at Fairleigh Dickinson University. I finished 3 master's degrees. I have the first one in psychology, the second one in management. I'm sorry, no. The second one is with FDU on administrative science, and the third one is on management. So currently, I am taking my PhD. I'm on my first year doing cultural diplomacy. I'm pretty bored, Ryan. I'm sorry about that. And so this is my way of just being alive, doing things that would make matter, or what would matter, and make myself productive. Thank you.
Thank you. I throw my hands up because each year that I do this and I hear from you all, I'm just inspired by how much you still do as well. 3 master's degrees and now PhD as well. Congratulations, my friend. That's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for starting to share some of your journey. And I think some of you have started to talk about this a little bit, but I want to try to elaborate on it a little bit more now with our next question here. I want to know what your motivation was. And again, we already talked a little bit about being a change maker, but you know, for those that are on the presentation here today, I want them to hear, what was your motivation fully for going into this field? And how did you know that this was going to be for you? Let's switch it up. Let's go with Deniz first.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're very welcome.
So I think when you work in or around the United Nations, it means that you live the values of the organization in your daily activities and your behaviors. It should be the core of your mindset. It should be the core of your character. So you need a motivation. For me, it was volunteering and making changes in vulnerable communities for their lives so that they can thrive and reach their full potential. United Nations has 3 values. One of them is integrity. The other one is respect for diversity. And the third one is professionalism. And also deep commitment for continuous learning, and also a deep commitment for volunteering, which is a universal, dynamic, and creative resource to respond to global challenges. So it's not just a simple career path. It's not just a simple way of working in a company or in an organization. It's actually a human act. It's a moral must for everyone. Everyone should be a part of UN's work. For me, it started with all volunteering and this motivation because I feel responsible of making a change. I feel like nature's stakeholder. I feel like I need to cooperate. I need to do something. I need to take an action for nature, for people who are living in worse conditions than me. So that was my motivation. And the work that I'm doing with School Construction Authority is saying that creating sustainable schools around the city. And in the meantime, I, for example, lead. This is an example for you. So you should feel motivated for this. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, you can contribute to UN's work. That's my point. So at work, for example, besides my daily responsibilities, I lead a sustainable office initiative where we create the net zero agency with net zero waste. It's just volunteering. It was my initiative. I started it with my colleagues, and then I spread the word. I created this awareness, and in a way, we educate each other. We spread the word on global issues that we really care about, and that's how we take action within the company and outside of the company. So I think it all starts with your passion, your determination, and your volunteering, your desire for volunteering. Because for UN, I think wherever you are, whichever department you are working in or around, it doesn't matter. It's always this feeling of helping others, for social justice, for fairness, right? For equality. So they should be your core values. You should feel responsible. You should feel like I need to take action. And I think during COVID and post-COVID world, we saw a lot of examples of this. I mean, we have a lot of reason. I feel like COVID, in a way, was like a wake-up call for everyone, because women are still 2 times more likely to lose their job during COVID-19. There's this 50% income gap, 40% wage gap between women and men, and there's this unbelievable level of food insecurity in our post-COVID world. So global issues, they were always there, but now they're more clear. And I feel like everybody is a little bit more aware of all these issues. So this is a great time actually to be a UN employee, or to step up and say that I will volunteer for an agency that is working under United Nations or work United Nations itself.
That was phenomenal. I have to give you the hand clap for that one. That was, such a great explanation of how important the work is that you do, and showing how passionate, and if you are passionate about these areas, how motivated you will be to move forward and do these things. So thank you for that. And I did see some questions about volunteering. We'll make note of those and we'll answer that at the end. If we can go to Professor Nuguid, can you share your motivation and how you knew you wanted to get into the field?
Since the first time I joined this panel years back, I would always say my joining the UN is always accidental. It was not designed the way a UN mindset would have it. So I just attended a party in New York, and I was seated beside an HR person from the UN, and pretty much asking my background. And I said, I am into HR, organizational development. And she said, oh, wow, that's the one I need right now. We've been looking for that person. And I said, okay, so what should I do? And then she said, just submit me your CV and then we'll take it from there. And lo and behold, the following day, I sent over my CV. The same day, I got a call from the director, and voila, I got an offer to work for the UN, pretty much doing executive office work, training coordination on the management system. We were still back then doing the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals. So those who have not been born yet, SDGs pretty much was born out of MDGs. And so we coordinated the massive, it's a mammoth system of IMIS, transitioning the legacy of IMIS to a much ERP, more millennial-based operation. So that I transitioned. From there, as an executive officer, I felt like there is a bug in me to really know the UN system in itself, because working for the UN system, you will not have a good grasp of things up until you're in that system for a decade. You need to be inside the system for a decade to really understand how the dynamics work, because it's so complex. It's a mammoth organization that you have to look at the complexity of it. And so from operation, I went to working for technical cooperation, where you do a lot of programming work, you do a lot of humanitarian work, and so forth and so on. So that had exposed me in regards to the issue that is challenged by the small island developing states, challenged by the landlocked countries, the least developed countries and whatnot, the need for the development financing and whatnot. That had exposed me to there. And then eventually, when I get my professional level, I pretty much been exposed to the more complex, as Professor Phipps will tell you, more complex transaction, where all these member states will negotiate on specific issue. You will deal mostly with issue that has relevance to development goals, pretty much based on the priorities of the various governments. So as they said, it's one country, one vote. So it's not how large the country is and you have more votes there. So it's a one country, one vote thing. And that complicates a lot more because you have political parties engaging in negotiation beyond the national borders. So you have the Group of 77 negotiating with West Europe and other group of states on issues, for example, like triangular cooperation or South-South cooperation. Again, that deepened again my understanding of how really UN should be seen on different lenses, at least from within. And so from there, I am very entrepreneurial in a sense. So within the UN, you don't have that much flexibility. So I use that skill by pretty much engaging the agencies, the partners like the World Bank, the USAID, and so forth and so on, pretty much supporting an activity on a global event. We call it the Global Expo International Cooperation. So that in itself, I pretty much led the process where you have the member states, you have the national governments, you have the programmatic people, and you have all the international cooperation agencies like USAID, SIDA, JICA, TICA, and so forth and so on, putting them together in one global event every year, showcasing all these development solutions from different countries all over the world. So those are the things that pretty much triggered my passion to commit in what the UN does in its entirety. It's a complex organization where you have more than 20 plus specialized agencies and programs dealing with a specific mandate from member states. Understanding the UN, it's only then after 20 years I learned that it's the President of the General Assembly actually who is the boss of the UN, and it's not the Secretary General. The Secretary General is the servant of the member state. And so those are the things that, simple things, but it matters a lot, especially on protocols. Those are the things that pretty much supporting me up until now. I would want to help students to really understand how to get in, how to be prepared in engaging, and likewise exploring careers within the UN system.
Awesome. And thank you so much for that. And again, it's so interesting to hear from all of you the similar yet different motivations and ways of getting into the UN. And we're going to elaborate on that a little bit. And I just want to point out, and I'll mention it again in the end, but I just want to say for everyone that's here today, what you heard right there is what I try to tell everybody. You never know who you're going to meet or who you're going to sit next to. That this whole career and that whole journey that you just mentioned happened from sitting down at a table and talking to somebody. Pretty crazy, huh? Professor Phipps, do you want to go ahead and give us your motivation? How did you know you wanted to get into the field? And then we'll move on and talk about actually what students can do in the field and what they can do to get into the field. But if you want to go ahead and give us your motivation, let's go for it.
Sure. I would say that I was probably motivated by two factors. The first factor was that I grew up in a small town in New Jersey, in South Jersey, very small, very little culture, very little of intellectual interest. I'd say maybe 1/4 of my graduating class went to college. Most people just stayed put. I didn't want to spend my life in a small town in New Jersey. So I went to an Ivy League school, and while I was there, like Deniz, I spent a semester in Paris. And I saw that, being in Europe was very interesting. My father had been an immigrant from Eastern Europe. And so I never felt like totally part of the culture in South Jersey. I felt like there was something else that was sort of broader that called to me. And so when I went to grad school and met people from all around, again, I did another international internship between undergrad and graduate school, expanding my horizons. And then when I got to the end of graduate school, I said, well, I want to do something that's international. I want to get out of small town New Jersey. I want to broaden. But the possibilities seem to be the Foreign Service, which is a government job, banking, or multinational corporations. And I said to myself, I want to make the world a better place. I want to do something to improve the lives of people. Banking and oil companies didn't seem to be heading in that direction. didn't seem to align with what I wanted to do with my energies in my life to improve things for people who are less advantaged than I might be, or that people I knew might be. And I see that happening a lot these days. Back then, it was, you know, a little bit after the 60s, but it was still sort of colored by the ideas of the 60s and sit-ins and Black Power and all sorts of anti-war demonstrations. And now you see it happening again. A lot of young people demonstrating, taking on social responsibility. And that's part of what led me to work for the government, because I saw the government as a tool, as an arm to do good for people, to improve the world. And I see that happening now with all these people demonstrating, with the Black Lives Matter movement, the very fortunate jury decision that came down a day or two ago, which reverses so many years of police officers being able to get away with horrendous, brutal acts. And I think those are the two things: to get out of my small world and to do something to make the larger world a better place with whatever meager means I might have to help do that.
The meager means seem to have, they seem to have turned out just all right. I think you did a pretty good job, made a good decision. Thank you for that again. And the reason I love asking this question of what motivated you is there's so many different people in the room here today, right? And we all have different motivations, and we all have different ways that we wind up in a field or fall into a field or go for a field. And I think it's important to hear from folks that have been in this field now, how it comes from different directions and different things that motivates you. It's fascinating to me. So I want to move into the really important aspects now. I want to get your advice on what students can be doing, what options they might have for getting into the UN. What are the areas and the things that they should be looking into now if they are interested in it? And I'll start with Professor Nuguid. What are some of your pieces of advice? What are some of your things that you can help students understand for their pathways, if they so choose, into the UN?
All right, thank you, Ryan. First advice I would certainly give the students are to be aware of how the nomenclatures in terms of contracts are being applied in the UN. And so in the UN system, you have several contracts there where you could start at the onset as a fixed term or a temporary fixed term. Temporary fixed term pretty much extends to up to 11 months of work based on, for example, an entry level of a data programmer or a computer programmer or a data analyst at the level of beginner. And then from there, you could progress into continuing appointment, which is CA, pretty much extending from 1 to 5 years. And then depending on the budget, you will be extended again for the next 1 or 5 years. And then after that, the zenith will be the permanent appointment, where you have a unlimited, because of the core nature of your work, you will be extended up to 10 years and then be renewed after that. You also need, as a student, to be aware that if you, for example, intend to be someone who wants to be exposed on the various global issues upfront, you need to be at the level of professional at the very least, where you will be exposed to different countries, 194 countries and so forth and so on, because lower than that is what you call the G support, the G level. The G level is pretty much on the general services, where you will just be stuck, not really stuck, but the confine is pretty much in the office, and you support professionals and directors and ASGs and even the SG. And so depending on the kind of intent in terms of the career trajectory, you have that as an entry point. Now, you have several UN agencies, because it's kind of difficult to really appreciate the UN in itself if you are looking at it as a macro organization. So it's a mammoth organization, and if you splice it, you will find a niche for you. So you have 20 plus specialized agencies, programs, and funds there. So if and only if, for example, I'm seeing a question about healthcare, there is definitely no healthcare career in the UN headquarters in New York, but you have an agency specialized at a global level called World Health Organization, based in Geneva. And you also have the regional, which is the Pan American Health Organization, based in Washington, D.C. So that in itself will give you somehow a picture of whether you want to be engaged at a global level, pretty much touching on the 190 plus countries' needs for public health, HIV/AIDS, vaccination, and so forth and so on. Looking at WHO.org vacancies, where you could either first do internship, do volunteering work, and so forth and so on. But if your intent is to look only at the Latin American region, you have the arm of the Pan American Health Organization supported by Inter-American Development Bank and the Organization of American States in looking at potential careers there. So in terms of programmatic work, where you deal with public health issues on children, on women, on youth, you have that in PAHO. If you want to do a nurse function, you are an RN here, you could do that in PAHO if you are looking at Latin America. If you look at the policy work, there are also that opportunity, but oftentimes you will have to morph from programmatic operational person, morph to policy work. It's so difficult to enter that policy world up until you see the big picture of things, because it requires a lot of high-level interaction, a lot of political negotiation, and so forth and so on. So that itself is also another career to work on. So to me, the best approach would be, one, to make sure that you have at least 2 languages, very proficient in 2 languages, wherein you can, especially in, for example, you look at the global. In the UN, you have 6 major official UN languages. So English is one. You have French, Spanish, Chinese, Russian, and Arabic, the others. Those are the languages that you need to be proficient also. But in the case, for example, of PAHO, they introduced also Portuguese, so because of Brazil. So they expanded it to 7. There are some UN specialized agencies that they incorporate other languages as well, like Nihongo, the Japanese language, especially in UNIDO, for example, because of the nature of the mandate. So that language proficiency is a requirement. Computer skills is it's a must. It's given. You need to have that competency. You cannot go wrong if you know advanced Excel, you're so proficient in PowerPoint, and so forth and so on. That is critical as well. Technical editing is very important. Pretty much support that with statistics. You will go mile way in terms of career, especially if you're looking at the ECOSOC as one potential haven for you. So that's it for now. I would want to give some others a chance. So thank you.
I was gonna say it feels like there's no options in the UN.
I'm sorry.
There are no. It's awesome. I was feverishly writing down notes because that's all phenomenal information. Let me ask you, how many languages do you speak yourself, Professor Nuguid?
Including the Tagalog, I have 4.
Oh, I think you were muted, or what happened there? There
including Tagalog, the Filipino language, I have 4.
4. Be real quick before I let the rest of you, Professor Phipps and Deniz.
How many languages? So 4. Turkish, English, French. My Spanish is not that good, but still, I think it's fine.
Professor Phipps, how many languages do you speak?
3, but
3.
French and Russian not very well. And
it's just, I wanted to stop and just ask that because I think it's important. I mean, Professor Nuguid, you mentioned so many phenomenal skills that students need to start developing. And I know how hard it is to develop language skills. You can do it, obviously, but you need to start now, right? Like if we're talking about developing or sooner rather than later, hopefully. So Professor Phipps, let's go with you. Let's talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what can students do to get into the UN? What are their options from the way you view things? And what sort of advice do you have for them?
Okay. I think one of the easy ways to get into, well, not easy, but one of the pathways to get into the UN is to do an internship. And as Professor Nuguid was saying, there are many branches of the UN. So if you go on the UN.org website, that will take you to the UN Secretariat. And that's one place where you can find jobs. But as I was saying earlier, it's a little hard for Americans to get jobs at the UN because they've got quotas for how many jobs each country should have. There are other parts of the UN, as Professor Nuguid was saying. In New York, you've got UNDP, the UN Development Program, and they are a pathway to a number of smaller agencies, such as, for instance, UN Women. So if you go on the UNDP.org website, you'll see job listings there that are not only in New York at UNDP headquarters, but are also overseas in UNDP missions overseas, and that might be in New York at UN Women, might be overseas with UN Women. There are various short-term jobs, short-term contracts, 3-6 months. There are more full-time positions, but a lot more paths open up if you look beyond the Secretariat. Another place to look is the UNICEF website, because UNICEF, although people think of that as part of the UN, and it is definitely part of the UN family, UNICEF has its own totally separate administrative structure and their own hiring structure. So don't think that you went to UN.org and put in a job application that you've applied for everything. You can also look at the UNICEF website, the UNDP website. And then, of course, as Professor Nuguid was saying, there are other UN headquarters overseas. WHO, the World Health Organization that he was talking about, is in Geneva. Also in Geneva, you've got the International Labor Organization. You've got UNHCR, the High Commissioner for Refugees. You've got the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And all of those, if you speak some French, it'll be easier to live in Geneva, but it's not a requirement to speak French to get one of those jobs. And it's easier for an American citizen to get a job in Geneva than in New York because of the quota system. And there's some very interesting jobs there, human rights, health, etc. In Rome, you've got all of the food-based agencies. And there's more and more of an interest and an emphasis these days on food insecurity. And you've got the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization there. You've got WFP, the World Food Program. And so if you're interested in food policy, nutrition policy, agricultural policy, you could look at jobs in Rome or internships in Rome at one of the food-based agencies. Another way to enter into international work, if not necessarily directly into the UN, is to work for an NGO, a non-governmental organization. So Professor Nuguid was responding to the question on chat about healthcare type opportunities. So there are a number of nonprofit organizations, NGOs, that do healthcare work around the world, not just MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. There are others as well. So if one was a nurse and wanted to do nursing in Africa or in the Middle East or whatever, you could look for non-governmental organizations that provide medical assistance and could get a job overseas doing some kind of practical work. That would then bring you back from that stint with skills that could be attractive to the UN. Because it's very hard, I think, to get a job straight out of college without having had very much work experience at the UN making policy. So NGOs are a great place to try to do some work. There are a number of refugee-related NGOs, human rights-related NGOs, lots and lots of different NGOs out there. Then, of course, there's the US government. There are many internship opportunities at the US government. I'm not quite sure what's going on with that because of COVID, but as people are getting vaccinated, we're seeing hopefully the end of the COVID era and people will start doing more things in person. I think the State Department internships were put on hold last year because nobody was doing anything in person in offices. But as we get beyond COVID, look into Department of State internships, USAID internships. USAID is the US Agency for International Development, and they do a lot of work in almost all the developing countries. And internships are a great way to enter. And when you apply for a State Department internship, you, at the bottom of the application, after you say why you want to do it and what your motivation is, and you write your essay, you have a box to tick off, do you want to be an unpaid intern or a paid intern? And that's not supposed to have any impact on the hiring decision. So used to be almost all internships were unpaid, but now you have an option to be paid. It's not, I don't think, very high pay, but it certainly opens the path to people who aren't independently wealthy. Because a lot of people just can't afford to spend 6 months or a year not getting any money. And so these paid internships are great development. Be aware if you're going to apply for a State Department internship, and that would be an application either to work at the US mission to the UN in New York, or in one of the many State Department divisions in Washington, or in any of our 100 plus, almost 200 embassies and consulates abroad. The time frame for applying for an internship is much longer than you would think. You can't wake up in April and say, I think I'd like to do a summer internship at the State Department in Washington, because the deadline would have passed in November. So if you want to do a summer internship, you need to be thinking about it right at the end of the summer before. And in the fall, early winter is when you have to put in your application. Internships are not only in the summer, you can do internships in the winter, spring, fall as well, but with that same kind of 8-9 month lead time. You have to be thinking ahead a little bit. And then the last thing I want to say is that other missions to the UN, especially from very small countries, I've met some US college students or recent college graduates who were working as a diplomat, as an intern, as a diplomat in negotiations in the same room that I was in, negotiating the same resolutions I was negotiating for some of the smaller Pacific Island countries and some of the Middle Eastern countries. So, and those people didn't even have any ethnic background from the country that they were working for. It's just that these very small missions have such a small pool to draw from for their employment from their own ethnicity. And it's so far away to bring someone from, Vanuatu or whatever, that they will take applications from college kids, basically, who have just finished college, or sometimes they're still in college, and say, we need to have a presence at the UN. We're negotiating climate change or whatever. We need to have somebody to put in the room. We only have 2 employees at our mission. We've got the ambassador and the assistant who answers the phone. We need a low-level diplomat. Let's hire somebody straight out of college and put them into a negotiation with seasoned diplomats. And they don't necessarily participate actively very much, because those countries usually have a very small range of interests to defend, but they want somebody in the room to defend those small interests, as opposed to the US, where we have an opinion on everything. There's never any resolution where we don't have a stand and try to move policy in one direction or another. So don't rule out looking at the small countries' missions to the UN as an entryway into international diplomacy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Between those 2 answers, there are so many various different pathways, and we still have Deniz to give us some more info. If you want to maybe focus, I know there was a question before about volunteering and leading in this direction and how that intertwines. I know that was a big part of what you've done. So maybe you can focus a little bit on that for us.
Sure, Ryan. Thank you. So I'd like to add something before that. Professor Phipps and Professor Nuguid, they mentioned all the amazing ways of going into UN system there. I 100% agree with everything. There's also, I saw this question about healthcare in the chat box, and we mentioned World Health Organization. They have a summit, actually. It starts tomorrow from 23rd to 25th. It's a global youth summit, and it's free to register. Please go to their website, register for it. It's a great way of networking in the meantime with all the attendees. It's a unique virtual event designed with young people, for young people. And over the 3 days, the summit will convene young people from all over the world, key stakeholders from UN agencies and national governments and corporate partners to discuss the needs of young people in a post-COVID-19 world. So from there, you can also find a great opportunity maybe for networking. For the other question, I would love to say, so how you can get involved. So I want to say that networking and creating a powerful personal brand image is, I think, really important. So to create this personal brand image, I would ask everyone who is interested in a job in UN system to be a good learner, a good listener, a good researcher about the global issues that they care about. And they should advocate and communicate and be a good storyteller and educate others around them and to create awareness around them on the issues that they care about. NGOs are absolutely, they're a great way of getting in. I'm a part of them. I'm a member of International Alliance of Women and also UNA USA. These two NGOs, you can Google NGOs and you will find a very long list of NGOs, and whichever speaks you mostly, you can be a member of it. But especially UNA USA is a great one, because if you're under 26, you can unlock your free membership. And it's a nonprofit organization dedicated to promote political and public support for UN among Americans. They have these partnerships with UN agencies. One of them is UN Women, for example. They, first of all, keep you posted on every single internship, on every single job opportunity, on every single mentorship program. For example, just a month ago, they emailed me an opportunity, which is they collaborate with Tom Ford Beauty Company for this mentorship program. And I filled out the form, I sent it back, and I got accepted. So I'm in. I work with all college students in this mentorship program and on women empowerment, on gender equality, on women leadership at workspaces. So it's not just a simple membership. Once you are a member of these NGOs, you really get a lot of opportunities to get into the UN system and to work with them and make a change in others' lives. Also, is this Sustainable Development Solutions Network. They have SDG Academy, and they have free online courses. They have SDG Library. They have 3 different programs for youth, which is Youth Solutions Program, one of them. The other one is Global Schools Program. And the third one is SDG Students Program. Once you are a part of these programs also, you will get a lot of opportunities. You will get posted on every single internship, every single volunteering opportunity, every single job opportunity. Also, let's not forget UNICEF is one of the most efficient UN agencies. Also, I would like to mention that one too. It's National Volunteer Week, and UNICEF was founded by volunteers actually. So let's not forget the importance of volunteering when it comes to working for UN system. And they have this youth advocates program also. It's for young people between ages 18 to 25. Please check their website. Please, it's free. You can register. You can be a part of this program, and you can be a youth advocate. Also, I would definitely recommend to create a personal brand image focused profile on LinkedIn and check the job postings all the time, because researchers, recruiters, they go with the keywords, and they would like to Google you. They would like to see your personal profile on LinkedIn, on professional networks. So please pay attention on it. Please pay attention on your social media accounts and the language you use there, the message you use there in your social media. Because from there also it's a part of your personal brand image, especially in our post-COVID world. So please pay attention on those ones too. And please go to UN Volunteers website, unv.org, and create a profile over there too. You can always, there are calls over there for urgent issues, for general volunteering opportunities. So you can always apply for them, and you can be a part of it too. You can start as a volunteer. And like I said, volunteering is actually the core of serving United Nations. Even if you are a high-level executive or just an intern, doesn't matter. It's a core of serving UN. It's the core of being a part of this great organization. So start with it. Please network and also create a strong personal brand image that overlaps with your personal core beliefs and your concern and your interest in the global issues you care about.
Thank you so much. Again, all three of you have shared such vital information, such a wide range of information showing just how many opportunities there truly are. And guess what? I'm sure we haven't even scratched the surface of any of it yet. There's probably far more that we haven't even talked about, but I really appreciate it. We have about 6 minutes left, so I do want to open it up for questions from the audience. So we have a few minutes to answer those. So how do we want to do that here? Who else has questions? Let's check the chat here. I see Gloria. Gloria is the founder of Amazing Grace Children's Foundation.
Ryan, I'm actually going to interrupt you. I told Gloria that I will unmute her to speak with the panel directly.
Awesome.
Since she has such a detailed question. Hold on.
There you go. Perfect.
Let me just find her.
I see her.
Mute.
You tried.
Are you there?
Still muted.
You're still muted. Laurie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, very good.
I thank you so much for the opportunity. Hello, everyone, members of the panel. I think this is such a great opportunity to open the forum for people like us who are also trying to, assert our impact in the global field. I'm a graduate of FDU, and I came back a few years to also give back. I believe in giving back to the community that you're in. My very existence has been volunteering and making sure that somebody else's life is better than what mine is or how they find themselves. So for the past few years, I've been going to Ghana and volunteering in a local hospital, and I witnessed a baby die from lack of oxygen. So I came back and started doing research around the infant and maternal mortalities. I started looking at the SDG goals and looking at how we can partner possibly with United Nations and other organizations to really help to change the social determinants of children in very low resource communities. So for me, this is so wonderful to be among greatness. I am willing to learn, and I want to know what are the venues that I and my team and anybody else who is interested in making a change. How do we start to network with a big organization and partner to create a bigger goal? One of my very passionate things is to really globalize nursing and medicine, and especially in the field of, in the aspect of Corona and everything that we have encountered, to be able to make sure that we are streamlining healthcare in Africa as well as in the developed countries, because now nothing is really in silo, but everything really comes together, and we need to really expand our radar to look at those issues and how we can collectively combat it when it actually come to light. So I'm very interested in knowing how I can partner with the UN. What are the resources available for organizations such as small organizations that I have started? And basically, I need some directions. Thank you for the opportunity.
First of all, I just want to say props to you for starting that organization and doing what you're doing. I can already tell how dedicated you are, and we are among greatness. So does anybody have any advice? What can Gloria be doing?
I have one. Well, first things first. Is your organization based in Ghana?
So it's based in Ghana and both in US. We have 501c3.
When did you start?
About 5 years ago.
About 5 years ago. Okay. So I would attack it at the two tiers. One is the global international landscape or tier, and the other one is at the country level. If you are looking at the Ghana operations, I would urge you to coordinate that with the UN country team, specifically with the UN Women. UNICEF. If you have a UNICEF based in Ghana, I would urge you to initially contact that person, a focal person who is pretty much whose portfolio is looking at NGO accreditation. You need to talk to that person. And from there, you would have to expand further. You have UNDP, you have UN Women to pretty much support that intent, to one, to be accredited, and two, to pretty much secure both human resources and financial resources to support all your programmatic activities. That would be the Ghana. If at one point you are able to secure a meeting with the RC or RR, the resident coordinator or resident representative, please do so, because that is one way of putting that in the cognizance of all these people. At the global international level, I would urge you to, one, contact the NGO accreditation, making sure that your organization is accredited in the UN headquarters here in New York. And that accreditation will lead you to a massive network of agencies and organizations, either working similarly on the vision and mission of your organization, or somehow would complement your organization. That would lead you to either UN Global Compact Office, you would either the ICO, or even the Secretary General's ambassadors, pretty much looking at children, women, and youth as a priority. So that, to me, are the two attacks that I will do.
Thank you.
Just to build on that, I think, yes, it's a very good idea to talk to the UNICEF rep in country. I would also encourage you to talk to the US Embassy, USAID. Find the USAID person in the US Embassy in Ghana who is dealing with children and healthcare issues. And you might also want to try the British Embassy, because Ghana also has some British influence. I would follow that up with contacts at the headquarter level. So UNICEF, I would think that if you also were in contact with the UNICEF Ghana Africa division that works on children in Ghana, and the person in the field got an email from New York saying, yes, meet with this person. This person has bona fides. This person is someone to take seriously. That will help you get the meeting. Same thing with Washington. Reach out to the USAID headquarters in Washington. There are also a number of international NGOs that work on health issues in developing countries. I have some of those contacts. I sent you my email in the chat, Gloria, privately. If you email me afterwards, I'll try to hook you up with some of the large international NGOs that perhaps might be a funding source for you, or might have some advice for you, might help you in some sort of way. No guarantees, but I could give you at least 2 or 3 leads where you might be able to follow up.
I would like to compliment that. My wife still works for UNICEF, and so if you could email me, that also one significant support. No promises, but that's something that you would open doors just like Professor Phipps had said.
Put the celebration reaction up there, because this is what it is all about, folks. Seriously, I mean, number one, Gloria, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for representing FDU in the way that we hope everyone will represent FDU, and thank you for taking care of the world in the way that we hope everybody will take care of the world. We are among greatness today, and this has been phenomenal. Do we want to ask another question? I know we're up on time. What do you want to do, Ashley?
We have such a great questions out there. We are running out of time. We could take about one more question. Doesn't look like anything else is coming through.
That's okay then. I'll go ahead and wrap up. I just have a few notes that I want to say. Number one, again, thank you to our panelists. You guys are all so awesome. I leave inspired every single time, and I mean that. And I couldn't think of a better way to end this one with Gloria and your actual example of this in work, in reality. And we need more of that nowadays. We need more change makers. That was mentioned from the beginning. You know, being a public servant, being a change maker, volunteering, being able to take action on disasters and issues and vulnerable communities. These are all things that I'm jotting down as we went along, and they were just so amazing. Learn languages, volunteer, learn new skills, computer skills, technical editing, statistics. Make the world a better place. That was one of the main ones that I liked. Let's all make the world a better place. Thank you everyone for your time today. We couldn't have done it without you. I thank you for giving back to our students. And that is all from me. So thank you everyone. I'll hang around for a minute, but thank you again for attending. And this was another great session of working in and around the UN.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We're supposed to hang in, all right?
Okay, everyone. Have a great one and enjoy the Earth Day.
Yes.
Enjoy the nature, recycle, reuse, reduce, do something.
Do
That's
something.
the way you can shake the world. Don't forget. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much again.
You lost Jason.
We lost Jason. Always losing Jason.
He was here.
He was here. I saw him.
I
saw him. You guys were awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much.
That was fun. That was really great.
It goes by too quick though,
It's
is the
so
problem.
quick. Yeah,
I had more questions I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you all to share a memorable accomplishment or story. There were so many things I wanted to get to, but
I know the hour goes fast. I mean, maybe
does.
next semester we could talk about maybe expanding the time a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Next
From
time.
a listener point of view, an hour is probably sufficient.
It is.
There's a lot of information, and it might overwhelm if it were too long.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I tried to jump right into like, what can they do? You know, what's the action, you know, that they can take, and I hope that, I mean, it certainly sounded like they got a lot out of it. You guys, you have so much to share. It's crazy. Every time I listen to you guys, I'm fascinated, really.
Good. Well, thanks for inviting me, and maybe I'll see you guys this coming semester, because I'm going to teach in person in the fall, which I'm looking forward to.
I know. I look forward to seeing everybody in person.
Yeah, same here.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.